Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Ordinary Council meeting. I just wish to note that the meeting is recorded, so by being present in the gallery or asking questions, you are giving permission for your image to be live streamed. I'd like to acknowledge that we meet here on the land of the Noongar people and pay our respects to elders past, present and their future emerging leaders. And I'll call upon Councillor Dennis Wood to read the dedication.
May we, the elected members of the City of Kwinana, have the wisdom to consider all matters before us with due consideration, integrity and respect for the Council Chamber. May the decisions made be in good faith and always in the best interests of the greater Kwinana community that we serve.
Thank you. We have one leave of absence, and that's Councillor Barry Winmar. Public question time. I don't believe there's been any public questions provided. There is nothing in item 6.1 or 6.2. We do have on 6.3 two deputations, and I'll just go through them as they were received by the council. We have a deputation from Mr. Dom Watson, from Synergy regarding item 17.1. Mr. Watson, would you like to come to the podium and state your name and your purpose? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name's Dom Watson. I'm from Synergy. I'm Synergy's lead development engineer for their storage projects. I was part of the team that put forward the development application for Kwinana Storage Battery Project 1, which we're currently going through commissioning on at the moment, planned to be commercially operational in June. And I was also part of the team that put forward the development application in front of you now for 17.3, the General Industrial Energy Storage System, Lot 22 Leith Road, which is a critical asset for Synergy in the state to achieve their decarbonisation goals of 80% by 2030. I just want to thank the council for their support in processing the application and here to answer any questions the city may have. Thank you.
Thank you. The second presentation we have is from Mr. Nathan Stewart from Road Group on behalf of Denki Proprietary Limited and Anketel Holding Proprietary Limited regarding item 17.1. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. My name's Nathan Stewart from Road Group. Road Group acts on behalf of Denki Proprietary Limited and Anketel Holdings Proprietary Limited, being the owners of Lot 2 and Lot 313 Anketel Road in Wandie, which forms the core of the Wandie District Centre, located directly opposite the proposed development site on the northern side of Anketel Road. A precinct structure plan is currently being prepared for the Wandie District Centre and is expected to be formally lodged with the city within the next couple of months. It was hoped that construction at the district centre would be underway by now. However, the need to determine the extent of the additional Anketel Road widening required for Westport has significantly delayed the project. Our client has raised significant concern with the proposed development at Lot 219 Albina Avenue and is particularly concerned with the proposed liquor store component. We oppose this proposal given that if approved, there will be very low likelihood that a liquor store could be established in the designated district centre. The complication arises to providing a liquor store within the district centre from the likely difficulty in obtaining a liquor licence for the district centre in the event that a liquor licence would have already been issued within the catchment for the district centre for the liquor store proposed by this application. Although this important point has been dismissed by the city staff, the ability to establish a key retail activity centre within the district centre is indeed a very relevant planning consideration and should not be ignored. The liquor store licensing is managed by Racing, Gaming and Liquor, with the onus being placed on applicants to demonstrate that there is a need for a new facility. The consideration of need includes assessment of the catchment and the liquor store. Whilst there are examples of areas where there are more than one liquor store within a catchment, these are either historic situations or situations where there is a broader catchment. The Wandie urban catchment is physically narrow in a north-south direction and heavily compromised catchment. We are advised by our client, who is an experienced retailer, that it is highly unlikely Racing, Gaming and Liquor will issue new liquor licences within this narrow corridor, meaning that if the current proposal is approved, the district centre will most likely not have a liquor store. The resulting impact will be that people will need to leave the district centre and undertake multiple shopping trips. This is a poor planning outcome for the centre. In relation to SPP 4.2, SPP 4.2 states that the responsible authority should not support development proposals that are likely to undermine the established and planned activity centre hierarchy. As you would be aware, the subject site is zoned service commercial. The liquor store land use proposed by this application is not permitted within the service commercial zone unless council has exercised discretion by granting approval. The approval of retail land uses outside of a designated activity centre should be by exception only. This would be consistent with the expectations outlined in SPP 4.2 that the city protects the integrity of the district centre. This is clear from several provisions of SPP 4.2, including Clause 5.1, subparagraph 2, Clause 6, subparagraph 2 and 3 of the current SPP 4.2, and also in relation to the draft state planning policy as well, which outlines in relation to out-of-centre development, and I will quote just one second. Where out-of-centre development is considered necessary and appropriate, it should be located to support the success of activity centres, minimise negative impacts to activity centres, be supported by public transport and minimise the need for individual private vehicle trips. We question how the proposed liquor store could be considered to be necessary and how, having regard to the likely complications associated with the liquor licensing and the proposed liquor store, could possibly be considered to support the success of the activity centre. The proposed liquor store can only compromise the ability to establish a liquor store within the district centre. It's very clear from both of these documents that it is intended and has been the established line of thinking for this type of out-of-centre development for nearly 15 years, that it should not be supported. In relation to the land use, to guide decision making with respect to the suitability of uses within the service commercial zone, clause 5.5.2 of the city's town planning scheme states that the council's intentions in controlling development within the service commercial zone is to A, promote in the service commercial zone showroom uses, and B, not permit in the service commercial zone shop uses. A liquor store that's currently proposed is not a showroom of a showroom nature and is closely aligned to the shop use. Put simply, a liquor store is a type of shop. There is no doubt that a liquor store is a retail activity and a shop is a building where goods are offered for sale by retail. It is consistent with the definition of shop in the city's scheme. We're unsure at the statement from the city staff on page 24 of the agenda that the proposal is not a shop land use. The city staff go on to state on page 25 of the agenda that there is a clear message in the Anketel North Local Structure Plan and in LPS 2 that a shop land uses should be prohibited in the service commercial zone, with the implication that a liquor store is not a shop land use. This directly contradicts the statement on the top of page 143 of the agenda, where the city's economic consultant has clearly stated that the proposal will provide small-scale shop retail uses. This conflicts with clause 5.5.2 of LPS 2. The service commercial area is noted in the Anketel North Local Structure Plan as being intended to provide complementary land uses to support the Wandoo District Centre. However, given the proposed establishment of a liquor store use will at best replicate but more likely result in the inability to achieve a liquor licence within the Wandoo District Centre, it is difficult to understand how it could possibly be considered to provide a complementary role to the centre. In fact, it's very clear from all the planning framework that I've talked to today that the proposal, in particular the liquor store component, will detract from and undermine the Wandoo District Centre before it has had a chance to go through the due planning process, being the preparation of the precinct structure plan, which is already on foot. We iterate that a liquor store land use can only be approved in the service commercial zone through the exercise of discretion by council. The use is only considered by exception, whilst there may be circumstances where such a use could be appropriate within the service commercial zone. An out-of-centre location opposite a designated district centre is clearly not one of those circumstances. In relation to the economic consultant advice, the city's economic consultant has focused their assessment on the scale of the development proposal, being the floor space, but has failed to consider the nature of the land use, being the liquor store, and the impact that it will be experienced by shoppers in the district centre by not having a liquor store in the proximity to the shopping centre. The city's scheme is very specific in stating the intention of a shop use, being uses that offer a retail function, should not be permitted in the service commercial zone. Whilst liquor licensing is beyond the control of the city, it is nonetheless important that the city considers the primacy of the district centre in this location and ensuring that shopping needs of the community are met in the centre. As such, the city should not dismiss the factors that influence the practical establishment of this use within the district centre. The proposed retail store is a retail activity that is not appropriately located outside of a district centre, especially when having regard to the added layer and complication of liquor licensing that this situation unfolds. Having regard to the location of the site, it's considered the only appropriate course of action in this instance is for the city to refuse the liquor store proposal, and we request the council to please refuse this application. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, and I'm sure there'll be several questions asked the officers on the back of your submission. Thank you. Deputation. Item 7 is a confirmation of our minutes from our ordinary meeting held on the 26th of April. Are there anything arising from those minutes? If not, would somebody like to move them? Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Rouse. All in favour? Against? Carried. We have declarations of interest. I have 2 declarations to provide. One is in relation to 17.1. The proponent Synergy are a member of the Kwinana Industrials Council, and my husband is an employee of KRC, therefore it's an impartiality interest. The second one is 17.3. I'm a member of the Outer Metropolitan JDAP, Joint Development Assessment Panel, and as such the Joint Development Assessment Panel will be assessing the Responsible Authority report which is presented to us tonight when this matter comes before it for consideration. Thank you. Councillor Rouse.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I also have an impartiality interest in 17.3 as I'm a member of that JDAP. Just inquiring if I need also one for 17.2. Will that be coming to the JDAP? Mr CEO, do you know? It's an amendment to the...
17.2.
I'll put the impartiality in just in case. Yep, all right, for 17.2 for the same reason as well.
Is it coming? Yeah, must be. That was just a very minor... Okay, thank you. Well, therefore, I better put in one too, 17.2. Okay, thank you. Are there any other interests to declare? If not, item 9 is a request for a leave of absence. Thank you. You don't have to get up if you've...
That's all right, I'm
to.
getting up now. I'd like to apply for a leave of absence from tomorrow until, I've forgotten the date, in June, about the 4th or 5th of June.
So we'll just tidy that up once we can get confirmation, but as from the 11th to 5th of June to be advised.
Right, thank you.
Would somebody like to move that way? Thank you. Moved Councillor Rouse, seconded Deputy Mayor. All in favour? Against? Carried. Are there any other leave of absence? Thank you. There's nothing in item 10, 11, 12 or 13. Item 14.1 is the establishment of the Aboriginal Cultural Advisory Committee. Are there any questions of the officers on this report? If not, we have a recommendation.
I'll move that, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor Rouse, seconded Deputy Mayor. Councillor Rouse, would you like to speak on this item?
Yes, Your Worship. I'd just like to say that I'm in full support of this motion. The formation of a committee is a natural progression of the Bullamara. We've developed a strong working relationship with the Bullamara over the last 5 years, of which yourself and myself have been a part of, Your Worship, and it's progressed to a stage where I think it's would be a worthwhile and the support and advice provided by a formal committee from those with the knowledge of Aboriginal culture and heritage could only enhance Council's decision making in the future. So thank you, Your Worship.
Just one moment. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I concur with Councillor Rouse in that I think it's a good move to move the group from being just an advisory group to a formal committee of council, which, as Councillor Rouse alluded to, creates some formal decisions and formal advice to council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried, and proudly say that we're the first council in Western Australia that has actually formed a formal committee of council in this manner, so well done. So nothing on 15, 16. Item 17.1 is the development application for the drive-in takeaway food shop and liquor store, lot 219 Albina Avenue, Anketel. Of course, we do have had a submission. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Thank you. Councillor Rouse.
I was just going to ask the CEO if he could respond to Mr. Stewart's deputation. Whether I was going to try and search for the right words for the racing and gaming to grant a liquor licence.
Thank you.
Through your worship, yes, I can provide some feedback on that submission. Just in respect to the argument that approval of a liquor store will prejudice the ability to gain approval of a liquor licence. First, I make the point that planning authorities are required to have due regard to 27 distinct matters when considering development under the planning and development regulations. But a possible future competing development is not one of those matters. So there's no law, regulation or planning scheme provision that requires a planning authority, when determining an application for development approval, to have regard to future competing proposals. So commercial interest isn't something that the planning process should be taking into account. Notwithstanding this key point in that respect, in respect to liquor licensing, firstly I'd make the point that importantly the city is not dealing this evening with a liquor licensing application. It's dealing with a planning application. The process for obtaining a liquor licence is a separate process to the planning process and is addressed under a completely different act. It's the Liquor Control Act. That act has its own assessment process, which includes advertising of proposed licensing to neighbouring properties and assessing whether a licence can be determined in the public interest. So the public interest, when the liquor licensing process is being considered, may include consideration of a wide range of factors, which, yes, does include catchments and population, as was talked about in the road group submission, but also includes factors such as whom the store is servicing, the type of centre, physical barriers such as major roads, as well as a range of other factors. And councillors will note in the council report that this proposed development is south of Anketel Road, and Anketel Road in itself is already an existing busy freight route, 80 kilometres an hour traffic movements through there. It's only going to get busier, and in time the shape of Anketel Road will change completely, and there will be very little access apart from one interchange to the south. Further to this, there's different types of liquor licences which can be sought and issued from taverns, and we know that one of the conceptual ideas for the district centre is potentially a tavern, liquor stores similar to this, and small bars. So there's a range and suite of alcohol-based, liquor-based services that can be provided. While, as discussed, commercial interests are not a planning consideration, if we were asked to hold a view as officers, we're of the opinion that while approval of a liquor store may not necessarily assist in granting a further licence for the shopping centre, it isn't necessarily a barrier to the district centre obtaining future licensing or a range of licences in the future. We've had discussions with staff at the Department of Racing and Gaming on this matter, and it's not evident in those conversations that the road group submission's view that there is a very low likelihood that a liquor store could be established in the designated district centre is an accurate one. that wasn't the certainly wasn't the wasn't something that was coming through hard strong with liquor and gaming. But license ultimately licences are required to be provided through liquor gaming. I also raised the matter of uncertainty in consideration of the road group argument too, because there's uncertainty in terms of the timing and lodgement of the structure plan, lodgement of any development proposal for the district centre, for the liquor store to be developed on the centre, and the land still remains development zone at present. So for the purposes of this DA, there's uncertainty around all of those other uses. So I just refer to the other matters raised in the submission of the road group. The provisions of local planning scheme 2 seek to promote, they do seek to promote showrooms in the service commercial centre zone, but they should be read alongside the Yanketil North local structure plan, and it had introduced a lot wider suite of land uses in that service commercial strip along Yanketil Road. And we're happy and satisfied that these uses are satisfactory for this zone. We don't contest that a liquor store could be considered as a shop in the wider standard commercial context, but in a planning application sense, a liquor store is classified under the scheme as a liquor store, separate use. And we go to the liquor store use, and it's the liquor store use that's an AA use under that service commercial use, which is permissible use. The final point I would make is that the application does fit within the city's local commercial activity centre strategy framework. So from a strategic point of view, as was provided by Praxis in their advice to the city, and we've included that advice in the attachment to the council report, they were satisfied with the retail component of this use. So in terms of our broader strategy, these uses do fit within that planning framework.
Well, thank you very much for that explanation. Now, are there any more questions that arise from the submission or anything you wish to ask Mr. Nielsen? If not, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Oh, sorry? I thought you were asking a question. Thank you. So, moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor D. Wood. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item?
Just briefly, Your Worship, I think the residents of Honeywood certainly will be happy that there's some more facilities going in closer to their community than what currently is. So I support the development, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
Yes, Your Worship. Getting up and down is a bit of a help, but there is a need out there for some sort of centre to cater for the increasing number of houses going into that area, and I believe this is a good thing to be for us to approve.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? If not, I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 17.2 is the JDAP approval for a change of use for a shop of Salvation Army, Lot 3 Mears Avenue, Kwinana Town Centre. Are there any questions of the officers on that item? If not, we have a recommendation. Move Deputy Mayor, seconded to Councillor S. Wood. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item? No. Councillor Wood? No, thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? Put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 17.3 is a joint development assessment panel application on general industry battery energy storage system, Lot 22, Leith Road, Naval Base. We, of course, have had a submission. Are there any questions of the officers on this matter? Do we have a mover, please? Moved a Deputy Mayor, seconded to Councillor S. Wood. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item?
Just briefly, Your Worship. I mean, it's good to see that more of these technology and obviously this is a second stage to the development is going into the city. It's great for the city, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
Just that it's great to see that there's more certainty for the energy users when this is built. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 17.4 is a tender in relation to the provision of tree management services, and I do note there was a confidential attachment A. So I'll just wait for our guests to leave. Thank you very much for attending.
Get out of here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, are there any questions of the officers on this matter? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Your Worship. Just in case Mr Elkin thought he got out of any questions this evening. Just wondering what provisions there are within this tender for traffic management in relation to the trimming of the verge trees.
Through Your Worship, I haven't read the tender documentation or specification, but we have a separate contract in place for traffic management, so without having read it, I'm be highly confident that this contract doesn't include it, because we would normally provide that under our separate contract.
Was there something that gave rise to the question?
So I guess my question was in relation to what requirement does the contractor have to then engage the city's contractor to ensure that traffic management is in place? As a specific example of, I think it is the current contractor was trimming the trees in Pace Road in Medina. Their vehicles were parked contrary to the flow of traffic. There was no traffic management, and it was actually somewhat of a hazard, Your Worship.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. I will have to confirm whether or not traffic management is included within the contract, but as I said before, I would doubt that because we have a separate traffic management contract in place. But that being the most likely case, the answer is none. It would be the obligation of the city then to provide the traffic management, but I'll confirm.
Thank you. So would you like to read that out, sorry, Mr CEO?
Through you, Madam Chair, in the attachment, it does make comment, but as Mr Elkins has referred, we will look at it a bit further, but it does state that risk management was well addressed with examples of SWIMS, safe work method statements and traffic management plans included, but we will double check in terms of how that's managed.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Councillor Wood.
I was always of the opinion that the council always worked together with the staff. But sometimes there's something that comes up that I think that it's like the staff are controlling us. And on section 2 of that, to authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute the optimum extension periods, got no problem with that. But it says there, the second part of it is a sentence which it should not be there. It's at the Chief Executive Officer's. I know it's been changed. I know it's been changed. Thank you.
It has been changed.
But the wording still means the same. The CEO has discretion to do it. I think it should. Those ones of a lot of money should come to council. That's the only complaint I've got. It should be all of us, not just some of us. Thank you.
I'll just allow the CEO the opportunity just to quickly respond.
Through you, Madam Chair. Firstly, Councillor, I don't agree with your statement that staff are working against the council and that there is some other thing at play. I completely disagree with your statement there. The wording in there is similar to a number of other tenders that have come before council, and in terms of how those tenders are managed, because it is becoming quite operational in terms of the way that the performance of them as to whether they are extended or not. And of course, we take into account the monetary value, and then if it is over a certain level, then we will come back to council. But it is pretty standard in terms of how that's done, but it's not working against council at all.
Any questions arise?
I didn't believe that I said it was a gas, councillor. Did I do that?
Yeah,
I apologise. I didn't mean to say that.
thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, we have a recommendation.
I'll move that, Your Worship, as a clean sweep of the board.
Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Rouse. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item? Councillor Rouse?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. And I appreciate that wasn't exactly what you were trying to say, Councillor Wood, just to set the record straight. Sorry, did you vote for or against, Councillor Wood?
I voted against.
Against, thank you.
Can we do a
Division.
division?
Oh, thank you. Are you able to put a division then? Thank you. Which is what we normally put up. Carried it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Item 18.1 is our monthly financial report for March 2023. Are there any questions arising from that report? I actually do have a question of Mr. Elkins. I'm just trying to find it. It's just in relation to the outstanding rates. I think at this time of the year we've got about 9% of rates that haven't been collected. Does that amount include those ratepayers who are on arrangements? It does. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the figure that's reported is the rates that have been collected to date, so it would not include those ratepayers which are on direct debits or other arrangements,
Okay.
which we do have a number which have moved across to those.
So for those for those who have generally outstanding rates and aren't on a repayment, I understand that there's a repayment program or process that we go through.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, so the team manage the outstanding ones quite well. There is a process that they go through where they contact the ratepayer, have discussions with them as to any difficulties that they may have, look to put them onto rate plans. In terms of the recovery of rates, we perform quite well, and we get to quite a high recovery rate, which is probably around about an outstanding amount each year of around 3 to 4%.
Thank you. And do we still have the financial hardship in place, or it's really
Yes,
just
no,
great?
that has continued.
I am mindful that some people are doing it very tough in our community. So, look, thank you for that. Are there any questions? Thank you. We have a recommendation. Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Kearney. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item? Councillor Kearney. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. There is nothing on item 19, 20 or 21. Item 22, we have a report of our elected members. Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Wood, D Wood. Thank you. Councillor Rouse. Oh. Now, Councillor Brown. Oh.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on the 27th of April, I attended alongside Mayor Cara Adams and Deputy Mayor Peter Feasy the Wellard Village People's Sundowner at the Wellard Tavern to celebrate the successes of the Wellard Village 7-day makeover. And that was with residents, volunteers and city staff. It was an absolutely awesome atmosphere with everyone sharing stories about the week, how they were enjoying the updated space, and also they had so many ideas about what to do next in Wellard and across the city of Kwinana. Huge congratulations again to everyone involved in this groundbreaking initiative. It was a celebration evening very well deserved. Last Sunday, I took part in the Kwinana Lift the Lid Walk for Mental Health alongside Mayor Cara Adams and Councillor Barry Winmar. which is a jointly sponsored initiative by the Kwinana Rotary and Kwinana Bendigo Community Bank, and supported as well by the City of Kwinana. It was fantastic to see 150 community members getting together to raise awareness and discuss such an important issue that so many in our community face at some point in their lives, whether it be themselves, a family member, a friend, or even a work colleague. I want to say a big well done to everyone involved, and what an impressive effort it was in raising $3,000 for ARH Children's Mental Health Research. And also, since our last Ordinary Council meeting, I attended the latest Cockburn Sound Management Council meeting, this time hosted by the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. Here we heard presentations from Westport, the WAMSI Westport Marine Science Program, DPIRD on its fish kill workshop and management of marine pests in WA, the Vision for Cockburn Sound project, which a number of local residents and stakeholders were interviewed for, and as well as BP on the company's renewable fuel project in the Kwinana industrial area. As part of my member update to the Cockburn Sound Management Council, I did communicate that at the City of Kwinana Ordinary Council meeting held on 22nd of February 2023, an advocacy position supporting a ban on recreational shark fishing on beaches within the city was endorsed by this council, and that the city CEO had subsequently made a request to the Minister for Fisheries to prohibit recreational fishing of sharks within the City of Kwinana and adjacent coastline. Now, I do ask your worship if you feel it's appropriate for the CEO to provide an update on some of the advice we had received today on this matter.
I think it's entirely appropriate. It was quite topical and still continues to be in the community. Oh. One moment, I might have to assist the CEO find the letter.
And perhaps to follow up that, perhaps that advice is also, if there's any opinion, if that's in line with what neighbouring councils had received as well.
Through you, Madam Chair. So yes, we have just received today advice from the Minister for Fisheries advising that they had received our letter and considered it. In the letter, they basically state that the state government is still committed to keeping the water safe and looking at a range of mitigation measures in terms of being able to do that. They have, for instance, already taken action regarding bans on the use of wire trace at a number of beaches such as Cottesloe, Port Beach and Leighton Beach. And they've also prohibited the use of blood and offal as an attractant, which they did in 2013 to discourage targeting of large sharks. What the Minister did note was that they will work with the Department of Primary Industries, Regional Development and Rec Fish West to look at the management of risk and public expectations around shark fishing. But that will take obviously some time as they go through an engagement process. And then they will look to engage further with stakeholders such as ourselves and the community around future mitigation. So this does seem to be a little bit different to the advice that the City of Cockburn received, where they said that they weren't open to doing any further measures. So this does look like that they are open, but obviously it'll be a process that they'll go through. So we'll keep a watching brief on that and engage as necessary.
It would seem quite odd that the two pieces of advice are slightly different. You would think, sharks do swim freely across borders, but nonetheless, thank you very much, and thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. Councillor Eswood.
Since I've been on leave, I have very little to report. I've only been back for approximately a week and a half, but I did attend Mr. Joseph Chipping's, better known as Nobby's, 100th birthday on
Yesterday.
Yesterday, week's going fast. It was amazing to see that he didn't have a walking frame, walked with a walking stick, had all his faculties, didn't even look as if he could be 100 years old. So I hope that we're all the same at his age.
Something in the water at the village, I think. Thank you, Councillor Kearney.
My only different, I attended the Grove on Saturday night. Unfortunately, the weather and it was very cold on Saturday night, but it did go very well. Probably not as many as there was last year, but the staff did an amazing job once again. So just thank you. It was a good night.
I think, unfortunately, it competed with the
coronation
as
it
well.
did too.
So thank you for that. Mayoral announcements. There's just a few there which I'll table, but just draw a few out. I attended the official opening of the Gilmore College Alumni Pathway. The project was an initiative of the Kwinana Old Flames alumni who, due to COVID, the path has been delayed for nearly 3 years. There were 250 purchased engraved bricks, and the City of Kwinana contributed as well with an engraved brick, and so it's quite a lengthy pathway. What it is really was a really great snapshot of the history and the people in the transition from the Kwinana High School through to Gilmore, but it's really hats off to the alumni. They raised $20,000 towards the Walkway project, but they've actually contributed through fundraising over $50,000 so far, and that has gone to scholarships and for the betterment of the students. So that's a group of people who used to go to Kwinana High School, formed a great alumni. Anyone's welcome to join if you're a former student or have a connection, but I tell you what, they really do a great job, so congratulations. I attended the Rockingham Kwinana Chamber of Commerce Key Leaders Business Breakfast. There was a really great presentation by Colleen Yates, who is the CEO of Regional Development Australia, and she spoke about the journey and the growth of Lithium Valley, and she started off by talking about lithium, precious minerals, on a global scale, and the maps, and how it actually, the importance now of Western Australia and Kwinana as these minerals and the importance of, going into batteries. So she was saying, what was happening on the world stage for battery materials, to international demand, political drivers, and she said she shared accepted views about WA's place in the value chain and Kwinana in the advanced processing space. So if you ever get the opportunity, it'll be worth having a briefing. It really makes you understand, puts a lot of the jigsaw pieces together of what's going on in what has been coined Lithium Valley. Councillor Winmar and I attended the West Australian Local Government Association State Council Regional Meeting hosted by the City of Armidale. Councillor Winmar was filling in as proxy for one of the members who was unable to attend. In the strategic forum beforehand, there was a presentation to the delegates from Mr. Phil Hellberg, the CEO of Infrastructure WA, as well as Mr. Dan Thompson from the Welgers Economic team presenting on our quarterly economic update. But the presentation in particular from Mr. Hellberg was quite topical and became quite lively because he was talking about the interaction between local government, government policy, infrastructure, and I happened to raise about the issue of housing and how whilst there's a pledge to bring all this housing, make room for additional housing, you have to engage with local government who actually create the community. And the community has to be put in place, an important part of, I suppose, the jigsaw puzzle, to put it all together. And that, of course, sparked off quite a few discussions about the importance of local government, the issue with housing in general, homelessness, etc. We also brought up the emerging issue, which is the Western Power tariff increase and the local government sector response, which has been played out now in the local media. And I am aware that you have to leave, Deputy Mayor. But also one of these State Council items which was endorsed, which is of interest to us, as it has been raised on several occasions, is the following position on abandoned shopping trolleys, that local government sector advocates for state government to consult with the sector and prioritise legislative reforms that require retailers to contain shopping trolleys within their shopping centre property boundaries, inclusive enforcement and modified penalty mechanisms that are realistic economic imperatives for retailers to conform with containment requirements. So we'll see what the state government's response is to that. Look, they are all my main announcements tonight. Happy to take questions or discuss any of those afterwards. There are no items of confidential nature, and therefore I declare the meeting closed at 6:14, and thank you very much for your attendance.
Did Lindsay change that?